Hello and welcome to Summit Live, episode 25. My name is David Newmark. I am the president of Summit International Flooring. We are headquartered in Whippany, New Jersey, where we are broadcasting from, as always, on a whole variety of platforms. I'm not even going to try to repeat them because I tend to forget them. We have a very special guest today. We're going to welcome in shortly Blanche Garcia of B. Garcia Designs of Montclair, New Jersey. And also, she is one of the stars of Travel Channel's Hotel Impossible. Lately, I've been watching some episodes, and I have a couple of things to discuss with her, we'll say. But in just a moment, we'll bring her on from Montclair, New Jersey, with her very special guest. So, without any further ado, let's welcome in Blanche. Are you there?
I'm here. How are you?
All right, Blanche. How are you?
I'm great. As everybody else is, just crazy busy working, but I'm glad I could take a couple of minutes to kind of check in with you guys. It helps me to just kind of like relax for a second.
Well, we're glad you're able to join us too. And before we go too far and start talking about various things with the industry, I believe you have a special guest to your right, as I do.
Yes, this is Maddox. Hold on.
Oh, hello, Maddox. Oh, Maddox stays off camera.
He does for the most part, but he's there. He's like moral support.
Believe me, I know exactly what you mean, because Rocco, who's our office dog, our mascot, he's a saved dog. We got him from where did we get him from?
St. Hubert's.
From St. Hubert's, that's right. You think I'd remember that? From St. Hubert's, he's with us on every show, and he basically just doesn't move.
Yeah, well, he's just giving you moral support. His energy is feeding the both of you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I have with me today Mark Becker as my co-host. Mark is our national sales director, and we have quite a number of questions for you today. So with that, let me turn the floor over to Mark.
Well,
Hey, Mark.
we have a lot in common besides the dog, as far as segments of the industry that we serve, being hospitality, corporate, residential, a little bit of everything. But I'd like to go back for the people that don't know who you are and remind them that you've been in this industry since you were 12 years old.
Yes.
I started when I was 13. I started working, and it's a long history. When you're 12 years old, you worked with your mom, but I guess a lot of people know this about you because you are somewhat known, but maybe you want to tell the story of how that worked out. And I'm really curious, because you were in the construction side of the business then. I'd like to learn how you moved from construction and structure to interior design, how you figured out that you liked that part of it and how you made that transition. And I'm also curious to know if it was difficult working in what I would perceive as a mostly male part of the industry, being female in construction and figuring out how to get ahead.
So it's an interesting story. I'll make it succinct. My father had passed away when I was about 12 years old. And my mom was part of a religious organization that they had what's called quick builds. And they would travel around the state and build churches within about 72 hours at the time. And if you signed up, you could go, and you could still be a kid, but you'd need to go with an adult. And you could learn different I would say vocations in different parts of the construction end, which was cool. And my mom was like, my mom is very handy. She was into, at the time, tile work, and said, you know what, let me do this. Let me bring my daughter. It'll keep her out of trouble. We just went through this whole thing, and this will help, kind of like bond us, keep us together, something to do. So I ended up going with her. And so she would go off and go to the tile crew. And I wanted to learn what was going on. I loved just the way the construction site felt. And so you were able to, at my age, to go to different crews and say, let me work with you and do whatever you need so that I would learn. So I started, I believe, on the landscape crew. I ended up going to the sheetrock crew and learning how to put up rock. I went to the electrical crew. I learned that. I learned how to put down sod, and I also learned roofing and siding. And then I also went to tile crew and wallpaper. And actually, my mother met her new husband after my father had passed a couple of years later. He was on the wallpaper crew. And so it was fun because you built this family type environment. We would go like one weekend a month, and that's how I kind of fell in love with construction. I didn't know I would end up in design, but when I was in high school, I got bullied a lot, and I really was like, this is not the place for me. It was kind of a little bit of a rough place to be. And I think also when you lose a parent at a young age, at a critical age, it also affects you in a lot of different ways. So for me, I really didn't know my place. I was like, I don't feel like I belong here. And like I said, I was getting bullied at the time. So I went to my mom and I said, listen, I'm going to leave school. Like, I'm not staying. And she said, well, if you're going to leave, you need to figure out what you want to do. What's your next step? What do you want to go to school? Do you want to start working? What do you want to do? And so I said to myself, what am I good at? And it's an odd question to ask yourself at 16. What are you good at? What do you want to do the rest of your life? And so I had in my mind, I was always really artistic. And my mom was really artistic and always designed the houses that we were in. And I would help her, or like I noticed she had a good eye, or if we had parties, I would help her throw those and decorate them. And I just remember going like, wow, I feel like I can do this. And at the time, the only person I knew that did that was a friend of hers that worked at Ethan Allen. And to me, that was like the Mecca. I was like, ooh, that sounds fancy. Right. So I was like, how do I get a job at Ethan Allen? So I ended up going to Ethan Allen, walking in and just asking someone on the floor, how do I get a job? And she's like, you have to go to school and get a design degree. And I was like, okay, I guess that's what I'm going to do. And you don't know at that age what you're getting yourself into. And I guess I could have gotten into it and been like, wow, I'm just going to design pillows and do all this stuff. But when I went to school for it, the more I learned, the more I realized how much more deeper it went. And also the different layers it could be. And so I saw myself having a future, and I saw myself having legs, right? So I was like, I can be, I could do design anywhere. I can have a family and do design. It was very mutable to me. I could do lighting design. I could do this. And so I found a school that would take me. I got my GED. I ended up finding a school. My mother drove me to school every day. Until I got my license. She wouldn't let me go to New York. I ended up going to a school that's not even in existence anymore. It's called Wilsey Institute of Interior Design. Wilsey Institute of Interior Design. It was in New City, New York. It's not around. I think it's a nursing school now. I went there, and then I took my support credits at Berkeley College. And so I started working, and I was probably about 17 years old when I went into the field and started working as a draftsperson. And just started there. So I've literally been in the industry now for probably over 25 years, maybe even, I don't know, more, I don't know. And I've worked at all sorts of ends. So I've actually worked for window treatment companies. I worked in the retail. I worked in wholesale in the city at 200 Lex. I opened my design business. I failed at my design business. I went and worked for an architecture firm. I went back out on my own. So I've had a lot of incarnations, but I've probably been out on my own straight and said, I'm going to go for it in 2008 when the market crashed.
Good timing.
You've definitely earned your credit for sure.
Yeah, it was perfect timing. And, that's basically it in a nutshell right there.
Well, was most of that early work on the residential side when you were designing?
Yeah, so I always loved commercial, but it was very intimidating. So at first, obviously, you do what's more comfortable. The residential end was something that was easier to attain. So I got into that first. And I probably say that I didn't get into the commercial end of it until maybe 2004. A little bit, and then I dabbled more so. 2008, when I went out on my own, I was doing more residential with boutique type commercial spaces, so doctor's offices, that type of thing. I didn't really get catapulted into the larger commercial projects until I was on Hotel Impossible on Travel Channel. When I started that show, I actually started getting calls from companies and hotels, individualized and also branded all over the world, that wanted me to, some of them, do what I did on the show, which was go into their lot and start building furniture on the side, and others that really understood the hospitality end and just wanted me to do design work.
Well, it was written that you're I don't remember where I read, but I read that your style didn't really have a name. It was just all your style. You weren't copying people. I looked at some of your work, of course, I've seen over the years since we've been connected. And I would say it's more like a timeless contemporary, a lot of balance, a lot of clean lines, subtle shades of color. but it is a unique style, and it's very telling when work is yours, that you can see that work is yours, and it's easy to see why people were grabbing you to work for them.
Well, for me, it was always about the client, right? And the locale. Like, I definitely feel an energy when I enter a space, especially a commercial space for me. It's like thousands and thousands of people are using it. So I never wanted to walk away and go, well, Blanche did this for the most part. But I did want it to be whatever the space called for, but in a filtered and edited way. So I like something that's elegant. I like something that's a little bit more contemporary, but I never want it to run out of style. I never want it to be something that, you know, I do want it to be timeless, and I do want it to be something that, you know, it is relatable, you know. And when it's an individual's home, it's really very much about their style and me just translating it. When it's commercial, it is very much about the masses and what's going to feel more comfortable, and also for the property and the brand. So I appreciate that, and I think that that's kind of what people have picked up. I think a lot of, it's funny because I've worked with a lot of publicists and different agents over the years, and they always come at me with like, so what's your shtick? What's your style? What's the name? And I'm like, you keep trying to label me, and I really don't appreciate it, because I'm not one of those that's like,
you've gone past just that aspect. You've gone deeper into the industry. You've got LEED certification. You're into the wellness movement. A lot of people don't even understand what wellness means yet. It's coming. We Summit International Flooring, we work with mostly partner suppliers from Western Europe. In Western Europe, they're a little advanced. They're more advanced than the U.S. market in terms of sustainability. And
right. Just as California is more advanced than the United States, Europe is more advanced than
exactly.
Yeah. So for example, Object Carpet put a wellness spec on all of their carpet tiles: no bitumen, no PVC, and no latex. So I thought maybe you could tell the designers watching today and other folks that tune into our show a little bit more about the wellness movement, what that is, and how you incorporate that into your work.
Well, the wellness movement is what the green movement was probably in the 70s. And it really didn't get pick up. It didn't pick up and get speed probably till the 90s. But wellness is the next frontier. So it's basically taking green design, which is about the environment and the buildings that you are in, to make sure they are healthy environments and healthy materials. And it's combining the individual and the human aspect. So the people that are experiencing the building, it is combining those aspects. And so it's not only saying we're going to design this building to make sure that the building is supporting you in a healthy manner through materials and whatnot, but we're also going to make sure through well design that we are supporting you in a way that is the nutrition that you eat, the signage that you take in, the biophilia, what kind of support system is put into the culture of where you work so that it supports you in a healthy manner, your sleep patterns, things like that. So in Well, they believe that 360, when it comes to design, when it comes to health, when it comes to your sleep, the things that you see, the information you feed yourself, being able to have moments to yourself to repose, being able to have those meditation moments, those types of things. So they've combined all of that, and they've connected it with design and structure, which for me is like the most important thing in the world. It's everything that really I've always believed in, because I wrote a book years ago called Empowered Design, and it was about 360 design, seeing your life in a more holistic way, instead of just saying, oh, does this look good in here? Great, I love this room. It's like, how does it support you in so many different levels? So Well takes that into consideration. So it's kind of like the brainchild of LEED and just regular construction.
Something that you were just speaking about prior to that has me very interested. You went to work and learned how to put up sheetrock and how to put up wallpaper and how to do tiling. I think that sets you apart from 99.9% of all other designers out there, because you understand more so what can go on a project, how difficult it is to make a delivery. Oh, and that just reminded me, I happened to see a clip of you making a delivery of an iceberg not too long ago.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was a nice delivery in Juneau. I don't know if anybody else knows about this. I might as well just turn that over to you in just a minute. But the point is, you have hands-on experience doing things, not just laying out spaces, not just picking the finishes. You have physical work. She has done the physical work. So I think that sets you apart.
It has set me apart, and especially when I started so young, a lot of contractors underestimated me. So when I walked into a job site or I was on a project, because of my age, they just thought I didn't know anything. But the truth of the matter is that I actually knew a lot more than a lot of designers who were much more vetted than me, because I had on-site hands-on experience, and I knew what a project took. So there were times that I would come up with a design, and I have so many contractors that I've always said throughout the years to me, or even professionals that are like, oh wow, you actually designed something that could be built, or you actually understand how the pieces come together. You're not just saying, well, why can't this just be built, or why doesn't this just be drawn? It's like, I understand how drying time takes. I understand how things function. And so when I am talking to a lot of contractors, things like that, it really has set me apart. And I would say that the majority of my clients are developers, contractors. They're pretty much people who are in the know. The end user, the housewife, the retail husband, that type of thing, are not exactly my overall client, because my understanding and my connection to a lot of my developers.
Well, when you're working on hospitality or corporate work, you're now bringing that wellness that you knew 20 years ago, 30 years ago, back into the mainstream. And people do work better when the lighting is proper. People do work better when there's sound dampening in a large open space. Even at Summit, we recognized that a lot of our products were luxury products and high end, and we needed something that was more affordable. But we also needed something that fit this movement that's happening so strongly and coming on more and more so every day. So we recently got into the cork business. We brought a company called Granort from Portugal here, because not only sustainable, renewable, biodegradable, sound dampening, all the bells and whistles of today, but with a product that doesn't look like yesterday's product, because they can paint it, they can digitally print it. Designers can create their own digital prints and come up with their own patterns for relatively small quantities. So we're kind of tracking along with you, starting with having a pooch on our lap, all the way through to the wellness movement.
Yeah, and I honestly, with what's been going on, especially with COVID and whatnot, it's hit the residential sector, where people are really taking wellness into consideration into their homes and how they respond to it. They're there a lot more. In the commercial sector and hospitality sector, it's picking back up, right? Because now they're seeing that in a couple of months, a year out, people are going to be hitting traveling hard. As we get the vaccine, as people are opening up, right? People are stir crazy, and they're going to get out, and they're going to want to travel, and they're going to go nuts. And now they're going to be able to work as they travel much more. And so with doing that, they need their rooms to be multifunctional for them. So it has to support not only that, but we are also coming out of an era that is very mentally taxing. We're going through something where people are going through a lot of mental illness because of what's going on, and because we've been locked into our homes and all these things, it's really affected mental health. So our commercial spaces, the hotels and whatnot, have a lot to live up to in this new market, and wellness, I think, is at the forefront.
I work for a visionary, and Dave Newmark could have taught everybody how to work and go on vacation, because if I take a vacation day, he's got me working 3/4 of it.
First of all, don't believe a word he says. I'm a
Right.
pushover.
Right. To go back to that story, Dave, that just so I heard that, it was an iceberg. It was in Juneau, Alaska. Yeah. I did build a living art in a bar, so that people that got off of a luxury cruise liner could go to the bar and take a picture without having to climb the glaciers. The problem is when they were delivering it, the two people that were getting it off the truck, which was high up, they both stood in the back and picked it up. So when you stand in the back of a heavy object, it teeters forward. Yeah.
Yes, and I just looked at that clip, and it did not look pleasant, and thank goodness.
No, and I went to go, because I'm very hands-on, I went to go catch it, and I would have caught it if I wasn't exactly in the cavity of the igloo.
Oh, really? I didn't.
So
know
I went like this. My hands went into space.
Yes. I saw. I didn't know that, but I did see Anthony Melchiori almost teach you something, verbally yell at her for being in a bad spot at a bad time.
He's very buttoned up and he's very more the corporate guy. I am, I like to be hands-on, and I grew up with a bunch of boys, so I'm a little bit of a tomboy on top of being past in construction. So I like to do things hand-on. There's nothing that I would tell somebody who worked for me to do that I wouldn't be able to do myself. And I pride myself on that. So when I'm on a job site, I don't care if I'm on TV or not, I'm going to jump in. And so that's gotten me in trouble with him a lot, because he's like, you could get sued, you could die, you can't be hanging off the side of a building, you can't be doing this. And I'm like, well, why can't I? But, so.
And just so you know, on that note, we're always looking for qualified installers.
Yeah, when you get
just in
slow.
case you're slow.
I think my pay rate would be a little higher than your average installer.
Well, you might be better than them. We'll see.
That's
Yeah.
true. That's true. It could happen.
Well, you have an interesting background, and you've gotten involved in a lot of different parts of the industry. People should look at your website. They should give you a call. I'm sure you'll take on projects anywhere in the world, as you've already discussed. So people should definitely, if they don't know you, they should check you out.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And other than hospitality and residential, do you work with any other special types? Do you work in retail? Do you work in corporate?
I have done a funeral home.
Really?
Yes, in Florida.
Okay.
I was a big fan of the show. Wedding banquet halls. I have done some nightclubs. So I have ventured into all sorts of different types of ends of things. And sometimes we get, right now I have a project that came across my desk that I'm really excited about. And it's called Marywood. It's in Maine. And basically it's a vacation community. It's a group of homes that I'm going to be doing the interior design for. It's 3 different types of homes. I think 45 homes in total. There will be a community. This is like the Plan B community. So the actual person who came up with it, Randy, he works in the sustainability arena very heavily. And he said, listen, we have climate change and we have COVID, and I need to be able to get away with my family, that we can go off grid if we need to, that we don't have to worry about our food source coming from another country or this and that. So he came up with Marywood, and it's really in a community area that's going to have all this forestry land. And when you buy into your secondary home, not only will your home be solar powered and green and it'll have well attributes, but there will also be a lodge with a fleet of boats on the lake. There'll be a wellness center I'm designing. There'll be a bathhouse. There'll be all sorts of things really close into town. And it's really amazing. It's going to be sustainable living, but at the higher end of things.
Understood. And this is, you said, in Maine?
It's in Maine.
Okay. Alan just wrote a little note. I was trying to read it as you were speaking. He wants me to ask you, what influences you? Where do you get your influence from?
Art.
I would say that honestly, my peers online, we're not getting out as much as we used to. I would say travel used to influence me a lot more, but since we've been home with COVID and stuff, honestly, social media, I'm a big person who believes in social media, especially as an artistic outlet. And I love seeing other designers work. I think it inspires me. It doesn't make me feel like, oh my God, they're doing so many amazing things. I'm like, great, they're doing so many amazing things. I want to do stuff like that. Or that looks amazing. Like, how do I implement that? And with every project, I research. And so, for instance, if I'm doing a high-end, pet-a-terre, if I'm doing a hotel, if I'm doing any of those things, I'm researching it. So right now we have about 12 different projects that we're doing. And to get into the zone of each one, I have to really dive deep into each project.
Well, as you do that, as people should look into you and remember you, we hope that you will continually remember us. Things like solid color rubber and realistic turf and all the great things we have, that we look for things that are unique and different.
Right.
So while you're doing projects with the next great thing that you haven't done yet that you're going to create, we're looking to help create with unique and different products. We love the fit. We love that you were on the show today.
Yeah, and we thank you very much for being with us. This is the last time we're going to use this studio. Keep in mind, we didn't have a studio a year ago. This since COVID, we came up with the idea of how are we going to get out there? How are we going to speak to people like Blanche?
You're growing.
Well, we saw
Yeah.
that Zoom
Yeah.
didn't work. You can't present to a whole bunch of people. They can't talk at the same time. They can't really get good visuals. Skype, it's okay, but you have to hold things right up to your. Oh, can you see that now? Can you
Yeah,
see that
it's
now?
never right.
So we built this studio with 4 high definition cameras. We give presentations. People can see texture.
I'll
they
give
can
you
see color.
an example
But
of some of the things we could do. Alan's flipping over to our solid color rubber and our almost solid color right behind it.
Nice.
So we can show product in a way that other people can't. We can show texture. We can show pile heights. And this all came from COVID. It was, how do you learn how to survive when you have a company that lives on making presentations and now you can't go present? What do you do?
Not only that, I have, even before COVID, honestly, I have a lot of vendors that reach out to me all the time, and we've always been very digital. So for me, time is money, and either I'm making money or I'm doing something that I love. So when I'm learning about product, that shouldn't take up the majority of my day. So for me to meet with like 6 different vendors or go out to a showroom takes a big chunk of my day, which I could be making money or doing something else that I love. So I've always been digital. I've always relied on my vendors sending me product via email or mailing me. And so being this industrious with what you guys are doing, it makes perfect sense for a lot of design firms.
Well, we're trying to stay on the forefront, and mainly we're trying to serve designers. And this was the way that we figured out how to do it, different than other people were doing it perhaps, but in a way that just made sense for the time and the moment in history. Just like wellness is important, so is communication. This is how we learn to communicate. So anyway, I think people got a better idea of who you are today. I hope you agree with that. As we said, we love that you came on the show. We're not going to.
Thank you.
We're going to do what you said and let you have your time to enjoy what you do or go make some money. So we're gonna wind up closing out the show. I'm going to turn it back over to Dave for that.
Thank you very much once again, everybody. This is Blanche Garcia of B. Garcia Designs in Montclair, New Jersey, and we thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Okay, now, so that does it for today's episode. We thank Blanche Garcia for joining us. She's a very pleasant guest, great background, and we look forward to seeing you again next week or in one of the upcoming weeks. We don't have anything scheduled now because we are renovating our studio. We're still waiting on materials, and of course, with COVID, there are some delays with that. If you should have any questions, please reach us at info@summit-flooring.com or call us at 877-496-3566. Once again, I thank Mark Becker and Alan Smith behind the board today for putting the show together. Thank you, Blanche Garcia, and we look forward to seeing you soon.